Welcome to the Album Nerds Podcast with your hosts, Andy, Don, and Dude.
Top of the morning. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to say top of the morning to you. That's probably quite annoying to the folks that we're paying homage to today in Ireland.
Homage.
This is the Album Nerds Podcast. I'm Dude. I got Andy and Don with me. Andy, how you doing today? Feeling lucky?
Punk, do ya?
Do you feel lucky?
No, yeah, I'm feeling great. I'm Scottish, so I don't really have any Irish accents in my bag, so I'm just going to pass on that whole thing.
Good idea. Don, how you doing, man?
Just enjoying a bowl of Lucky Charms.
Yeah, they
So
are.
I have to take the marshmallows out though, because I'm a vegetarian.
Right, because they're
That's
animals.
Yeah, there's like gelatin.
The horseshoes, you can't,
Oh,
you can't eat the horseshoes. Just the clovers. They're okay. All right, so this is the Album Nerds Podcast. We love albums, the album format, and discussing them, embracing them, and just dousing ourselves.
Rolling around and
We just love them. That's all. We love talking about them. All right, we've got a great show for you today. We're going to, of course, be digging into 3 albums each of us picked of artists and bands from Ireland. Don's going to ask us a deep question. We're going to talk about some other music that we're digging. And then we're going to spin the wheel of musical discovery to find out what we're going to talk about next time. But now it's time to go to Ireland.
That's what I'm talking about!
the indigenous music of Ireland has remained vibrant through the 20th and into the 21st century and has influenced music throughout the world. But popular music from the rest of Europe and the United States has also invaded the island. The 1960s saw the emergence of rock music, including artists such as Them, Thin Lizzy, and Gary Moore. Irish artists have continued to find success domestically and globally since then. The best-selling Irish acts of all time are U2, Enya, Westlife, and the Cranberries. And today, each of us will present albums by artists from Ireland.
It's interesting because of all the American bands, Dropkick Murphys and things like that you think of as Irish, but then really digging into just artists from Ireland was a kind of a different experience than I expected. How did you guys do?
yeah, I had a great time with this one. Lots of good ideas. You could say I went on a little bit of a bender here with all the bands I was
Seems like
to.
it. Yeah, you were throwing all sorts of stuff at us.
I'll give a shout out to irishtimes.com, which had a couple of really helpful articles on some up and coming and recent Irish groups. All right, I'll throw out a couple names here. The Undertones. Wow, a band I was not familiar with. Really cool, like elements of like punk rock and like some ska and just rock from like in like the early 80s, I believe. Pretty enjoyable group I'd never heard of. 90s alternative rock group called Whipping Boy. They had a really decent album called Heartworm in 1995. Almost went with that one. Rosen Murphy, the electronic music artist from the last couple decades. Enjoyed a few of her records. She is from Ireland. You had girl band / Gilla band who've been popular the last decade or so with some, experimental kind of like post-punk sound. A couple interesting hip-hop artists, one by the name of Denise Chilia, I believe is how you say her name. A record's called Go Bravely from back in 2020. But yeah, so I had a lot of options there, but I'm pretty happy with the one I went with.
I think you covered it for all of us. Don, how about you?
Well, I went back and listened to some records that I've spent time with in the past. The Pogues, are a kind of a post-punk band that always threw in elements of like traditional Irish sound. So their album, If I Should Fall from the Grace of God from 1988 is really good. Actually features a holiday song that I hear quite a bit at holiday time now, the Fairy Tale of New York. Sinead O'Connor's debut, The Lion and the Cobra. We did I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got maybe a year or two ago, but her debut is really strong. And also I remembered a band called Black 47. They're actually from New York, but the main guy actually, immigrated, when he was a teenager. So technically from Ireland. Album called Fire of Freedom from 1983. Another kind of again, taking that traditional Irish sound and applying it to like alternative rock.
Yeah, I found some stuff that did that applied Irishness to it. I also found stuff that didn't, to me, sound Irish at all. It may have in the lyrics, but a band called Gamma Bomb, thrash metal band from the early 2000s. I was thinking about the album Untouchable Glory from 2015. Sounds very like peak Anthrax. It's playful and fast. They also had an album come out in 2023 called Bats. I listened to the Cranberries for the first time on purpose all the way through. Their first two albums, No Need to Argue, was in consideration just because they're a seminal Irish band, but it was very long and I had a hard time getting like into it. And I realized that's where Alanis Morissette may have gotten her.
Yeah, enough of that.
U2, of course, was on the list, but we've talked about them a lot of times. But I would have gone with The Unforgettable Fire or Zooropa if I had gone that direction. And then another metal band, black metal, doom, and Celtic, called Primordial. And they'd been around quite a while. Their 10th studio album, How It Ends, from 2023, might have been their last, but it was a very interesting listen as well.
Oh, yeah, I listened to them too.
Yeah, did you?
Yep.
Ultimately, I went with something a little more now, a little more today. So why don't we get to our choices?
You choose me?
Which is the biggest city in Ireland?
Which is the biggest city in Ireland?
Dublin, because it keeps on doubling and doubling.
All right, that was a little bit of a LEG. Did you guys ever watch this show a couple decades ago?
I knew he existed, and it was the
Borat.
The mustache dude.
Yeah, I say Leonard Cohen, but it's Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah.
All right, for my Irish selection here, we are talking about hip-hop artist Nealo and his second studio album. For Neil Kedding, the album is entitled November Medicine. Deals with the dissolve of a 10-year relationship and some mental health issues that may have come from that. We are going to play what I believe is the lead single. This is called Forest.
Sometimes I cry just like a baby, smoking roadies, thinking heaven maybe save me in my focus, driving crazy, broke as fuck, I spend it all on rent and bills for me and Jakey.
Alright, so vocals there from Morgana. Artist I was not familiar with. Nealo was not an artist I was familiar with. Actually, any of the artists featured on this record I was not familiar with.
Same.
It's a pretty small project. Nealo is an independent artist. Actually refers to himself as a fully independent artist, which I've not heard that term before. Basically, that means someone who manages like his own marketing and promotion, his own tours. Like he does obviously writes his own music. He's like involved with the production, like very hands-on sort of DIY.
The Album Nerds podcast is also fully independent. Yes.
That's right. So I give a little love to someone doing it themselves there. Yeah, I found this record to be really enjoyable. In terms of the sound that he's going for here, is a lot of like, kind of like lush soul and, jazz samples being interwoven here with some nice vocals as well, kind of accompanying him. But he has he's a rapper, but he also has kind of like a sing-song quality to his voice where it's maybe not as hard-hitting as like West Coast rap in the US, but it's more about introspection and, he's not afraid of using some melodies from time to time too, which I think makes this a little bit different from US rap, but also interesting.
There were moments flow-wise where it felt like he was Emineming or trying to, 8 Mile kind of style. That's just what sometimes it felt like in those, especially when he got very frantic and loud. That's when it was like, okay, go back to the chill vibe, dude.
Yeah, I definitely preferred the chiller approach.
Yeah, the record starts out a little bit more intense in the Eminem space, but I think as it goes on, it chills out and gets more into like a ethereal kind of space.
Well, did he have a background, like, I thought I saw that he kind of did like rock or punk or something beforehand.
Yeah, I read he was in a punk rock group before this. I couldn't find any information on that group or any recordings or anything, but yeah, he's got a little aggression in him, but I think, he's a father. He's went through a long divorce and marriage. He sounds like he's gotten to a place where maybe he's matured a little bit. All right, my clickbait headline for this record is "This Just In: Irish rapper name generator tool discovered to simply just add an O."
Yeah, I mean,
his name is Neil. His rapper name is Nealo. Come on, I mean, it's a little lame.
Yeah, I mean, for the Irish tradition, it should be O'Neill.
Oh, that's right.
Right, exactly. Yeah, an apostrophe after
I
that.
like adding the Andy O, Dono,
Dudo.
Dudo.
Mega Dudos. Okay. Why don't we play one of the more ethereal cuts that appears right at the end of this record? This is Only
Through
Human.
my hometown with songs and speakers booming. Maybe a lesser man, a heart like this might leave him ruined. But I was born from stars and spores, more alien.
Is that a harp?
And I've got scars.
Sounds like it.
Sounds like it, right?
I don't think I've heard harp in hip hop before.
Underutilized in the genre, for sure.
Yeah, so I found a quote from Mr. Nealo about this song. He said, "It's about the overwhelming feeling of meeting someone and knowing that your whole lives are now intertwined forever. It's about meeting your soulmate in a messed up world where things seem to be falling apart. You attach yourself to this feeling because it is so beautiful and it makes you feel safe and connected." So yeah, it's sort of a gentle end to the record. My clickbait headline for this album is "Hip Hop Ditches the Bronx for Dublin." So, I had trouble kind of just getting past the idea of hip hop being from somewhere else, somewhere other than, urban United States. But, there's no reason why it can't exist in inner city Dublin or wherever, because you still have the working class vibe and poverty and racism and, just all the same issues exist, everywhere.
Well, I think it's so Irish in terms of like his accent isn't hidden. He's not trying to sound like rappers of America,
right?
And I think that's key here. If he was trying to sound like something else, that might be a little off-putting and not give it its own stamp. Oh, and he's so forthright and so straightforward, and those little tracks where he's just talking, like his little journal entries or whatever.
Yeah, it sounds like they're actually like voice memos on his phone or something.
Yeah, kind of like a voicemail, sort of, but they're just to himself.
Yeah, experiences like, feeling hopeless and then having a moment in the woods where all these birds are flying around, and it gives him hope and that, things can turn around. And if you see a beautiful thing, it inspires you. And just, an interesting experience with this guy.
And there was a good balance there between that like inspirational stuff and then like there's the one clip where he's talking about like doing acid for the first time and he's like, oh, we're seeing like the air of life or something around his hands, and you think he's gonna talk about how it was like some big epiphany, but it turns out it was just cat hair.
Yeah, it was floating in the sunbeams.
So I like his sense of humor and sort of self-deprecating vibe there.
Yeah, the record gets pretty heavy at times, but he does have these little touches of humor that kind of keep things a little more grounded. It's nice.
Just it seems like a very personal and vulnerable record, and it works. I had very low expectations for it, and it definitely it exceeded them.
Would you say they were Nealo? All right, why don't we play another cut from the record? This is one of the more overly produced tracks, I would say. This is called Tears You Cry.
The final days of capitalism look likely. Prophetic visions, nightmares and dreams come nightly. I might see you on the other side, baby, come find me.
This one definitely has a very R&B, dreamy sort of vibe to it. Soulful, jazz-infused. It's featuring Genova and Civ.
Yeah.
Again,
those guys are huge.
I think they add something to it. It definitely has a different sound to it from some of the other tracks. Themes of friendship, shared struggles, optimism for the future, which there's a lot of optimism here, even through the pain throughout the album.
Optimism.
The narrative style in this song is kind of a mix of that reflection and hope, But anyway, the saxophone line that adds in there, very Sade to me. For some reason, it evoked that feel to me, but very dreamy.
Very smooth.
My clickbait headline for this album, Nealo keeps it real and gets all up in his feelos. Irish rapper holds nothing back.
So bad. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, he's very, like we discussed before, it seems like he's being very genuine, very forthright, not necessarily using examples from other people's life, but just himself. This is very journal-esque, and he really does lay it all out there, and I appreciated that quite a bit. The first couple listens were a bit of a struggle, but the more I listened to it, the more I kind of got to know him and understand what he was doing, and it got better and better with every spin, so... Good on you, Nealo.
I hope he makes enough money to buy his dad a new bike.
His dad's bike got stolen on one of the skits, unfortunately. Yeah. He seems like just like a chill dude you could just like hang out and have a pint with and, totally relate to.
Have a pint. Wow. So international.
Is that the right terminology?
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Well, I was fairly impressed with this record too, after giving it some time, so I think you guys might be as well. So check it out. Nealo, the record isn't called November Medicine.
I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
If you're enjoying the show, and we hope you are, do us a solid and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Maybe we made you laugh, or you discovered an album you enjoy. Leaving a review keeps the show going and helps other music fans find us. At the end of the rainbow.
Well, I'm walking down the street and my legs are on my feet are in my trousers, my legs are on my feet. I'm walking down the street, legs are in the trousers. I look at you in my eyes. Look at you in my eyes. Look at you in my eyes.
All right. Well, my pick for an Irish artist is Van Morrison with his second studio album called Astral Weeks. Van Morrison is an Irish singer-songwriter, actually from Northern Ireland, but he's still Irish, born in Belfast in 1945, formerly of the rock group Them, which had that song Gloria that is pretty well known. So, Astral Weeks, comes after, a couple of years where he's got, record company battles. He kind of retreated to Boston where he was, kind of got like a folk, trio going. And basically the material on this album comes from that. So let's hear, the title cut and opening cut, Astral Weeks.
Would you kiss my eyes? Lay me down.
Did he say kissing my ass?
Is that the combination like Boston and Irish?
I don't know. He is such an interesting vocalist.
Yeah.
So Morrison described Astral Weeks, the song, as being like transforming energy or going from one source to another, with it being born again like a rebirth. He said, I remember reading about you having to die to be born. It's one of those songs where you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that's basically what the song says. So my clickbait headline for this album is Morrison proves hooks are not necessary. So, I mean, it's noticeable that, after having this huge hit record, Brown Eyed Girl, that's, just like one of the catchiest songs ever made, probably. I mean, this album doesn't really have any pop hooks. I mean, it's catchy in parts, but it really doesn't feel like pop music at all.
Yeah, it's like spherical, but quite pointy in parts.
Nice. So, I would say, I guess it's a folk rock record, but it really feels kind of more informed by jazz. It's there's a free form vibe to it. Well, let's hear more of it. Here's a song called Madame George.
In a corner playing dominoes and drag. The one and only Madame George.
Very long song. Many of these tracks are, which I think actually works. Usually, a lot of times that doesn't, but the feel and the vocal style really lends itself to long songs, and I think that's part of why this album is interesting. It's explorations rather than pop stuff,
Yeah.
Madame George details nightlife on Cypress Avenue in Belfast, and it kind of revolves around this character, Madame George, who gambles, parties, and many people interpret Madame George as a drag queen. Morrison at some point claimed it's a mix of people he's known, but the lyrics suggest otherwise, at least in that little bit we played there. So my clickbait headline is Astral Weeks, more like Astral Days. Van Morrison's stream of consciousness outshines moon dances and brown eyes. Brown-eyed girl. That is.
Not too hard to outshine a brown eye.
This album was recorded in just 3 sessions. That's where the Astral Weeks to Astral Days comes in. It's unbelievable, just the creative force here, the musicians that worked on it, and Van Morrison's vocals and lyrics. It's just very interesting how quickly this came together and how different it is from a lot of his other output. And I like the songs like Madame George and Cypress Avenue that have that sense of place and time and have vivid portraits of characters. This sound really leans itself toward storytelling and really seeing what's happening. I don't dislike Van Morrison. I'm just bored of Brown-Eyed Girl and Moondance and stuff. I'd never listened to this album before, and it was refreshing. It was a different side of him, a more creative side, and I really dug it.
Well, let's hear another cut. This is Ballerina.
Step right up and step right up. Ballerina.
Yeah, good use of vibraphone.
Is there ever a bad use of vibraphone? That's the question.
I'm sure there is.
Okay. That song was written when Morrison was part of Them back in 1966, supposedly after meeting his wife in Los Angeles. Them guitarist Jim Armstrong recalls working on the song originally with Morrison, saying, Morrison had all these words. We sort of formalized it because there was no structure to it. I thought that was kind of funny because I feel like this record really has hardly any structure to it.
Yeah.
Which I think is the strongest quality of it. And I think it makes it just stand out in his discography, very much so, but also just in folk music or folk rock in general. I really can't think of any record I've heard that really fits this mold. And I think just for that alone, it makes it really important and interesting. My clickbait headline is Morrison blows minds with extended freestyle moondance. Yeah, I think this is a pretty stunning record in my opinion. It feels like a burst of creativity and just the musicianship throughout it is stellar. I don't know a lot about the artists involved, but I think the result is just very impressive. Like you said, it seems to rely more heavily on jazz than it does on folk. But the mixture, I think, is what makes it so interesting. It's up and down, it's over and left. There's parts repeating seemingly and then just stopping. It feels very unpredictable from song to song what's going to happen, which I think is great. And that's, for me, that's what I love about music, just that kind of unexpectedness to it. Someone like Morrison, you kind of expect it to be more formulaic, I guess, because he's such a good songwriter. I guess is what I think of him. Brown Eyed Girl and the other, his other hits are so just sort of pop orientated, but this is not that at all. And I think just for that alone, I think it should be kind of held up and appreciated.
Yeah. So speaking of holding things up and appreciating them, I am going to nominate Van Morrison's Astral Weeks to the Album Nerds Hall of Fame. So, this album came out in 1967, really at the peak of folk rock, but at least from what I know of that genre at the time, and everything else that was going on at the time, I just don't think there was anything else that really sounded like this. I am actually surprised by how much I love this album. So I vote yes, of course. Dude?
Yeah, I think one of the things I look for in nominees here, even if it's stuff I'm not super familiar with, is did it elevate or move forward with its sound or something? And I feel like this did take what was going on at the time and elevated it, made sounds that weren't associated with folk rock and that jazz undercurrent. I thought it was a interesting blend of things, and I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, for me, I just gushed about it for a couple minutes, so I will just say yes. I think it's a great record.
All right. Congratulations. He's not Sir Van Morrison, is he? Do they? I don't know.
He is now. It's our Album Nerds Hall of Fame. I think that's the equivalent.
Congratulations, Van Morrison. Your album Astral Weeks is now in the Album Nerds Hall of Fame.
Excuse me. I'd like to ask you a few questions.
Now it's time for Deep Questions by Don. Do you celebrate St. Patrick's Day? And how so?
So this is a deep one, Don.
Yeah.
Yeah, very deep. Wow, you really
delving into our subconscious here.
Yeah, you really outdone yourself this time.
All right, St. Patrick's Day. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I used to drink a lot of beer. My mom used to put food coloring in her oatmeal on St. Patrick's Day, which was green food coloring. Just kind of, I thought it was fun.
It's like eating a bowl of mold.
Yeah.
It's pretty spot on for English cooking, I would say. Ooh. Yeah, my wife and I, we usually watch the Leprechaun, the terrible horror movie.
Oh, wow.
With Jennifer Aniston and a terrible Muppet.
Rubber. Yeah.
I'm the Leprechaun!
But yeah, I think probably the biggest change for me would be just I had some beers this last weekend, and I don't think I can do it again for St. Patrick's Day, man. I'm still recovering. Wow. It's been like 3 days. So I'm going to have a straight edge St. Patrick's Day, I think, this year. How about you guys?
Yeah, I don't anymore like specifically try to drink or get drunk. That's kind of the problem with St. Patrick's Day, at least. I don't know if it's worldwide, but in America, it's just like, let's get drunk and then pretend like St. Patrick, there's religious overtones and stuff there.
It's
and
sanctioned
it's just,
drinking day.
Yeah, it's just turned into an excuse to get drunk. I don't really do that part anymore. Yeah, I mean, I usually wear green stuff from that whole, I don't know if people still pinch each other. That's probably assault now. But back when I was a kid, that was a thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I totally forgot about that tradition.
Pinch me, I'm Irish. Yeah. Or kiss me, I'm Irish. Or I guess either one.
But yeah, you'd get pinched if you weren't wearing green on St. Patrick's Day. But yeah, I mean, after this experience, I might try and lean into listening to some Irish music, maybe even traditional Irish folk stuff on St. Patrick's Day, just to do something that's a tip of the hat to my Irish brethren.
Your folk dancing there?
Yeah, the little river dance. But yeah, I mean, I am of Irish heritage, so I should do something. How about you, Don?
Well, I am not of Irish heritage, but I do like to adopt customs that involve, drinking and food. But sure. I mean, it's been years since I've been out on St. Patrick's Day, and that's not really something that appeals to me anymore. But in recent years, I've said it before, I'm a vegetarian. And back when I was a meat eater, I used to love corned beef. And so I actually found this vegetarian corned beef.
Corn tofu.
I don't know what it's made of. I don't really care what it's made of.
What if it was made of humans? Is that okay?
Qualifies as meat.
It's sort of a gray area. But yeah, so I think the last couple of years on St. Patrick's Day, I've actually made myself a Reuben sandwich. Although I don't think a Reuben is really Irish. I feel like that's more like something out of Jewish delis.
Yeah.
But I do love cabbage. I love corned beef, and so.
Yeah, corned beef and cabbage is awesome.
Yeah. Well, what do you do on St. Patrick's Day? Let us know on Instagram and Facebook or leave a comment on our website, albumnerds.com.
So I just wanted to get to a point where I could sing in my own accent. I knew that I was onto something because of how insecure I was about it. And you should follow those insecurities. If we were to achieve one thing, it would be to influence people to be themselves.
So I went with Fontaines D.C., an Irish post-punk band formed in Dublin in 2014. Grian Chatton on vocals, Carlos O'Connell on guitar, Conor Deegan III on bass, Connor Curley on guitar, and Tom Cole on drums. Their music is often characterized with Chatton's spoken word vocal delivery, raw energetic sound. We're going to be talking about Skinty Fia, which is their third full-length album. So why don't we jump in with a little bit of the title track, Skinty Fia.
Well, I really don't care what you think of me, but something gives me to the grovel every opportunity. I've got that jealous stripe. I'll probably
it's got more of a hip-hop beat than Nealo.
No kidding. That sound actually reminds me a little bit of some of what U2 was doing on Zooropa. Playing around with new sounds, and I like that there's some experimentation on this album, including a song that's just accordion and Grian's voice. So the song Skinty Fia is a phrase that drummer Tom Cole's great aunt used to use, and it translates roughly to the damnation of the deer. There was apparently a particular species of deer that went extinct in Ireland, and
that's
what it refers to. That was Scottish sounding, dude.
Sorry.
Grian explained that the phrase embodies mutation, doom, and inevitability. And he kind of thought of it reflecting on his idea of Irishness abroad, such as the expression of Irishness in places like Boston, how that's a new pure form of Irishness, but it is different. It's a mutation of being Irish from Ireland.
Yeah.
It's a different way of expressing it. So this song also gets into some about a relationship. So it's a multi-layered, hard to explain song, but it's a fun listen. The clickbait headline I chose for this album: Fontaines D.C. serve up Irish angst, accordion included. The Irish invasion London never saw coming. It's moody, unapologetically Irish, poetic and dark, yet not depressing somehow. It's raw and it's just fascinating somehow.
Yeah, they've created like a interesting soundscape here. I would define it as it's a weird mix of like reverb and feedback, and like you have this strange vocal delivery, and it reminds me of other bands, like maybe like Sonic Youth or My Bloody Valentine. I hear moments of, but I think all these things combined, it really has a pretty unique quality to it that I haven't really heard before. So yeah,
that's hard to do these days,
especially nowadays. There's so much has been done. This feels pretty new.
All right, so why don't we jump into another track, a little bit of Jackie Down the Line.
I will wear you down in time. I will hurt you, I'll desert you. I am Jackie Down the Line.
That was the lead single, and I would argue probably the most catchy track on Skinty Fia. That one really made me think like, oh, these guys can write a hook if they want to.
Yeah.
Not much of the record really deals with that, but
yeah, I like the do la la la, which just sounds like a dismissive form of doing music tropes, which I thought was funny.
Right. Yeah, this whole record almost feels like it's kind of
like there's a little bit of
fun, a little,
yeah,
a little irreverent, definitely sort of vibe to it. Maybe it's just the Irish quality to it. I'm not sure.
Taking the piss.
There you go.
Yes, exactly. My clickbait headline is Deer Housepet Craze Sweeps Through Dublin City. The album cover has a frightened deer in the middle of someone's entryway in their home.
Probably representative of Skinty Fia.
Skinty Fia. Maybe that is a Skinty Fia. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, it's a very moody, sort of distressed sounding record, but very thoughtful. It means poetic for sure. And there's so much metaphor being used here. It's hard to really chip into to really tell what they're talking about. But the few times I did, I found it very interesting. Seems like it's a lot dealing with, social, political issues. Some racism seems to be a big part of the story here again, as we touched on earlier. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I found like a kind of like, in some ways, like Van Morrison. It felt very unpredictable. Like I didn't really know what to expect from track to track, and it kind of kept me on my toes, which I appreciate.
Even the songs with very few lyrics and repetition somehow isn't boring.
Yeah.
And the band has a lot to do with that. They make great sounds underneath the vocals. I mean, there's a lot going on in all the songs, and it's easy to kind of get washed over by the vocals, but there's a lot going on that are lifting those vocals up and making them what they are. So I just think it's a great band effort, and that's not always the case. All right, so why don't we get to the next track we're going to talk about? And Don, I Hate You. It's the opening track in our Carth Godio. Sorry. There it is.
Just sorry.
She defines the only reason for feeling.
Yeah, so I never really found the proper Gaelic pronunciation of that title. What is it? In our growth Godeo, but
that was closer.
Yeah, that's closer than me. the little chorus underneath there. They're saying it.
Yeah, but so apparently it translates to "In Our Hearts Forever," and so I guess the band chose this title in this song because there was an Irish woman living in England, and she put that, or she wanted those words inscribed on her gravestone, but the Church of England ruled that she couldn't use it because it could be political or provocative.
Yeah, this is recently too, right?
Yeah.
Around 2020. So it's crazy that stuff is still
But
Really?
I guess because of the outcry, the Church of England, I guess, gave in. So she did get that on her tombstone.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean that's the album engaged me right away. I mean the song is just so intense.
This is your stuff right here.
Oh yeah. I mean I love this post-punk sound. That track is so hypnotic. And I guess when you have a vocalist that doesn't really sing much, right? There's not a lot of like melody in the vocal lines usually. Yeah. I think where they can be effective is in the rhythm of it. And you know, he does a really good job with that. So I loved that song right away. My clickbait headline is post-punk outfit pay homage to extinct Irish deer. So blah, blah, blah with the deer again. But yeah, you know, I think overall, I mean, the album is more about just like intensity and rhythm than it is melody, which maybe separates it from some of the other post-punk out there. I mean, at times they reminded me of Interpol, you know, who's another, you know, kind of post-punk band from the 2000s. But this is, less melodic, perhaps more raw, maybe. This feels less contrived, I think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
His vocal delivery actually reminds me of Lee Mavers from the Laws, you know, who's not Irish, but kind of has that. I don't even know what that style of singing is. The guy from Blur kind of does it too, and Gorilla. What's his name? Damon Albarn or whatever.
I know what you're talking about, but I don't know. Is there a name for that?
I don't know, but it's sort of like an over enunciate. Like there's a syllable that they hold on to longer or something.
Yeah, it's kind of like Last Morissette, but not as annoying.
Oh, wow. But yeah, throughout the record, there's little surprises and a few the accordion licks mixed in. Yeah, definitely interesting. And, as Dude said, it's Irish, although they're not really, they're not throwing in like traditional Irish sounds or anything like that, but it feels like
very
how
genuine.
I picture Dublin, Yeah. So, good call.
Thanks. The closing track, Nabokov, I think is a really nice closer. The album just feels like an album, right? The songs, although it's not a story, they do fit together. The back and forth between the different sounds and musical flirtations with other sounds, it all fits together really nice, and that's a good closer. And of course makes a reference to the writings of Nabokov, and it's very
like literary sort of intellectual kind of sounding record.
Right. Yes, very much. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to listen to and get to know this band. And I had heard the name Fontaines D.C., which from what we've read, it came from originally from Johnny Fontaine, a character in The Godfather. There's another band called Fontaines, so they added the D.C. for Dublin City, and here we are. But they're definitely a known on the rise band, especially over in Europe, and I'll be paying attention. I really like what they're doing, and I hope to see them continue to grow. So that was Skinty Fia by Fontaines D.C. Check it out.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
So, on your journeys back from Ireland, have you guys been discovering anything new? What are you digging?
I thought you were going to try and do it Irish.
Digging. I don't know.
It just gets worse and worse.
Is anything magically delicious?
I got a couple of things in my pot of gold here I would consider valuable. Actually, there's been a plethora of new releases the last couple of weeks here, so I'll mention a few.
Plethora is a word which here means too many to list, but I will try.
We'll start out with Ali X. It's a new artist to me. Her album, Girl With No Face. This is sort of like gothic electro pop, I would describe it. Kind of like an emo quality to it. Really came to appreciate this after a couple of listens.
It's Ali G's sister.
Sounds like something from 1986.
Yeah,
definitely some shades of Madonna in there. Next record up, Letitia Sadier, I think is how you would say it. The album is called Rooting for Love. She's the vocalist from Stereolab.
I remember them.
Yeah, okay, so it's a very kind of ethereal, electronic sounding record. It has a very organic quality to it, I would say.
Don's eyebrows just went up.
And I got next one up for you here, dude. Bruce Dickinson has a new solo project out called The Mandrake Project.
Oh, yes.
Of course, Bruce from Iron Maiden fame. I guess he has a couple solo records out, I didn't realize. It sounds pretty good, to be honest. I was going to write it off, but I'm enjoying it.
Oh.
Against my better judgment.
Yeah, I've heard some talk that this is more Maiden-y than some of the recent Iron Maiden albums. I haven't yet listened to the whole thing. But interestingly enough, Blaze Bayley also just came out with a solo album, and he was the replacement for Bruce Dickinson in the early to mid 90s. And so just figured he should get a shout out here too.
It's a cool thing to do when you're Iron Maiden singer, apparently. All right, last one here. We got a new hip-hop record from LA rapper Schoolboy Q. Record's called Blue Lips. I was getting down pretty hard to this weekend when I was drinking. So if you guys can imagine that.
See, now if I go to listen to this record, I'm just going to picture you like mime rapping while you're drunk. And I really don't want that image.
No one does. Sorry, Schoolboy.
I picture somebody like drinking a slush puppy or something. You get like the blue lips. And the blue tongue.
Blue lips, yeah. What you been listening to, Don?
Well, I'm still waiting for the elusive Cure album to finally come out. We're fingers crossed that it happens in 2024. But it is the 30th anniversary of the live albums that they did from the Wish tour. So the Paris, which was kind of like a companion piece to the live album Show, which featured basically songs from like the main set of the tour, with songs from Wish and singles. Paris featured a lot of deep cuts from like Pornography and 17 Seconds. One of my favorite live albums ever. So they're re-releasing it in various formats, including vinyl. And there's a couple of songs added to it, including Shake Dog Shake, which is always one of my favorite live cuts.
Even just a couple of seconds, and I see Don doing the bobblehead move.
Don is there in Paris right now.
Yeah. Oh my God, Don's smearing lipstick on right now. Yeah, I don't think I've listened to any of the live stuff. Maybe I'll check some of that out.
Yeah, they are a good, I would say they're a good live act.
Okay, so for me, I've been, listening to a lot of Irish stuff, but I dug around for other things as well and ran into Shane Smith and the Saints. The album is Norther. It's their fourth album. They're kind of a red dirt country from Austin, Texas. They appeared on Yellowstone a couple times, and it's like Americana, alt country, folk. Lots of strings, lots of sounds, but interesting listen so far. Vocally, sometimes he reminds me of Coulter Wall, but with all the spice behind it, it is not as desolate.
Jeez.
A little more spicy country.
Yeah, a little spicy.
That Yellowstone has really cultivated a lot of
yes,
a lot of this.
Yeah. I feel like you brought a few artists to the table from Yellowstone in the last couple of years.
Now, I will mention briefly that I did pick up Skinty Fia on vinyl accidentally. I was looking through the S's at my record store, and it was there instead of under F for Fontaines. I yelled at the proprietor, but I happened upon it, so I thought it was fate, so I picked it up. But more fun.
The luck of the Irish.
Yeah, there you go. It's the luck of the Irish. I did find Barry White, Can't Get Enough. We talked about that on episode 194 of the Album Nerds podcast, and it's just, I didn't have any Barry White in my collection, so it was fun to pick that one up and listen to it on vinyl and try to experience it in the way that those did when it was new, and that's always fun.
I know what's going to be happening at your place.
Yes, I'm going to dance seductively for my wife.
Well, what are you digging? Let us know. Hit us up on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. Also on our website, albumnerds.com.
it will be a discovery of extraordinary value.
Well, it's about that time on the show, boys and girls, and I'm reminded of the great Irish poet W.B. Yeats, who said, "The world is full of magic things, patiently waiting for our senses to grow sharper." With that in mind, let's bring out my friend and yours, Wadbot, and see what we'll be talking about on next week's show.
Popular music has taken many forms, starting with rudimentary handcrafted instruments all the way to synth and electronic music composed on a laptop. Next week, you will be exploring electronic albums released in the early 2000s. You may have to put away your air guitars, but you never know.
Okay, so little direction change here. We're going with 2000s electronic music. Hopefully find some things that are rock and roll with electronica mixed in so that I don't drive myself insane.
Yes, this should be very interesting to see what you guys bring to the table here.
You got to plug in a guitar. It's electronic.
There you go. Well,
true.
Andy's the expert. He was spinning those turntables with goggles on his head and doing some glow sticks.
Yeah, this is my time period. Yeah, you guys are in for a real treat here. Let me tell you.
Put on your giant pants for the next show.
Yes. All right, well, don't forget, we do have an ongoing Album Nerds Hall of Fame vote up for your consideration, the listening audience. You can go to albumnerds.com and vote for Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell. Do you think that album is worthy to be in the Album Nerds Hall of Fame? Go to our website, albumnerds.com, or hit us up on the socials at Album Nerds.
What's your favorite electronic album from the 2000s? Does Bat Out of Hell belong in the Album Nerds Hall of Fame? Let us know. Leave a comment on our website or email us at podcast@albumnerds.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Album Nerds. And please subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast app. And if you'd like to support the show, you can do so via PayPal at albumnerds.com/support.
Thank you for joining us on the Album Nerds podcast. We will catch you next time with that electronic noise from the 2000s.
Turn down that noise. Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. Catch you next week.
Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling. I think that's all I know.
From Glen to Glen. Oh, sorry.
You're the Irish boy.
You gonna jump in, Andy?
I've never even heard the second verse before, so I have no idea.
I think that works.
Aye.